Before paleontology became the high-tech science it is today, it was a battleground. Not between dinosaurs, but between the men digging them up. This is the story of the Bone Wars, a fierce, petty and often ridiculous feud between two of the 19th century's most influential fossil hunters. The Bone Wars began with two men. Edward Drinker Cope was a self-taught prodigy from Philadelphia. Born into Quaker wealth, he was charismatic, impatient and fiercely competitive. He published his first scientific paper at 19 and would go on to write over 1,400 in his lifetime. Othniel Charles Marsh, on the other hand, came from modest beginnings but had powerful connections. Backed by Yale University and his wealthy uncle, railroad magnate George Peabody, Marsh had funding, influence and a slow-burning ambition. At first, the two were friendly. In 1863, Marsh even named a fossil after Cope, Anisoncus cope. They exchanged letters and even visited dig sites together. But in 1869, everything changed. Cope invited Marsh to a New Jersey fossil pit he was funding. Unbeknownst to Cope, however, Marsh returned afterward and bribed the quarry owner to send future fossils to him instead. It was a backstab Cope never forgot and never forgave. The 1870s and 80s were the peak of the Bone Wars. As railroads pushed west, Marsh and Cope raced to follow, hiring crews to dig, pack and ship fossils back east as fast as possible. Marsh based his operations out of Coma Bluff, Wyoming, while Cope focused in Kansas City, Colorado and later Montana. The rivalry escalated beyond the fieldwork, however. They began to accuse each other publicly. Marsh claimed that Cope rushed his publications and misidentified fossils. Cope retaliated, calling Marsh a fraud who depended on student labour to do his thinking. In one instance, Cope submitted a list of Marsh's mistakes to the US Geological Survey, including species Marsh had named twice or described from fragmentary material. Marsh, in turn, lobbied for government funding cuts to Cope's expeditions. Meanwhile, their field teams sabotaged each other. Fossils were stolen, quarries were dynamited to prevent access, and they even started spreading false rumours about sites to lead the others astray. It was scientific discovery by way of trench warfare. Perhaps the most famous blunder? Cope's reconstruction of Elasmosaurus in 1868. He placed the skull on what we now know as the tail, making the neck absurdly short and the tail impossibly long. Marsh gleefully pointed out the mistake in print, humiliating Cope. Cope was so enraged he reportedly tried to buy and destroy every printed copy of the journal containing his error. Marsh, however, wasn't above sloppiness either. He famously named Brontosaurus in 1879, unaware that he'd already named the same animal Apatosaurus 2 years earlier. Under modern rules, Apatosaurus takes priority. Cope made sure everyone knew it. Their feud made headlines. Newspapers loved the drama, calling them dueling professors and mocking their egos. In one editorial, it was said that they fight like children over the bones of giants. Despite the chaos, the results were extraordinary. Between them, Cope and Marsh named over 130 dinosaur species. Sadly, only 32 of them are considered valid today, but those include some of the most iconic names in paleontology. Marsh discovered Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Allosaurus, Diplodocus and Apatosaurus, whereas Cope described Coelophysis, Camptosaurus, Camarasaurus, Monoclonius and Dimetrodon, which is not a dinosaur, but a synapsid. Their work laid the foundation for American paleontology and filled the halls of institutions like the Smithsonian and the American Museum of Natural History. But their legacy wasn't all glory. In their rush to outdo each other, Cope and Marsh often published too quickly, failed to document dig sites properly, and mislabeled fossils during shipping. Some specimens were misidentified for decades or lost entirely in storage, their significance buried under the chaos of their feud. Ironically, they almost destroyed the field that they helped build. The Bone Wars eventually fizzled out in the 1980s. Marsh had fallen out of political favour and lost funding. Cope, who had spent his entire fortune funding digs, died nearly penniless in 1897. Marsh followed him 2 years later. Cope died without a will and was buried in an unmarked grave, but before his death he made one final, spiteful request, that his brain be preserved and someday compared to Marsh's to prove who had been the smarter man. Marsh never accepted the challenge. In the end, the Bone Wars were messy, reckless and filled with ego. But without them, we may have never discovered some of the most important fossils in North America. Cope and Marsh may have made science personal, but somehow between the sabotage and the pettiness, they helped bring dinosaurs to life, so that we can continue to explore them together generations later. This has been Prehistoric Fact Files. Make sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell to unearth more ancient secrets. Also be sure to leave a comment letting us know what prehistoric creature or fossil feud you want us to cover next. But until then, stay curious.